Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Anime Initiative, ComicBook.com's favorite show and really only show where we talk all things anime, manga, webtoons, otaku, you name it, we talk about it. And surprise, surprise, we got yet another packed show to go through. So I'm Megan Peters, I'm your host, and I am joined here by my good friends and colleagues, Nick Valdez and Evan Valentine. What's up, guys?
Hey everybody! Hey.
Oh, howdy everybody! I was still on mute.
All right. Coming with mime situation. We are live on Twitch and YouTube, so if you are one of the one of the few, you can watch the interesting like waves we just did to one another. But yes, we're all here today. We have reunited to talk about just an absolute ton of anime news that has happened in the last 7 days. Most importantly, we will be talking about this for the second half of our show. Sakamoto Days. The rumors are true, baby. We're getting an anime.
It's happening.
The anime is happening. The rumors did not lie. It is happening. Our favorite ex-hitmans is coming to the world of anime, and it's going to likely signal kind of what is going to be the crowning start. I feel like a really good official start for the next generation of anime hits. So we're going to be talking about what that generation is going to be looking like a little bit later in this episode. But first, we got a regular news rundown to go through because a ton of stuff happened, including things involving Rick and Morty, the anime. My Adventures with Superman Season 2 is here. Plus, we got a really solid update on Oshinoko, which is really the only thing I care about in my life. So let's get started with Oshinoko. I feel like I just teed that up really well. So for those who do not know, Oshinoko Season 2 is it's almost here. I mean, we're like less than 2 months out from it being live. It's supposed to be coming out in July. Season 2 is supposed to be streaming exclusively on High Dive here in the United States when Season 2 drops in July. We got a brand new trailer for Season 2 that looks gorgeous. I mean, it looks so good. The animation, the colors, everything. But most importantly, we learned that the new season is having its world premiere here in America at Anime Expo. So, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna have to fight my way in there. There's gonna be so many people trying to get into this premiere. It's gonna be ridiculous. What are y'all thinking about Season 2?
Well, my thing is like Season 1. It took me a while to actually finish Season 1 because unfortunately, while it starts very strong, and while I was into the idea of like reincarnated fans of an idol as her secret kids like coming up and trying to figure out the like who murdered her and all sorts of things, it was a good start, right? But I think once it got into like the actual idol stuff, like towards the end of the season, I was kind of like petering out, and it took me a while to go through and actually finish the final episodes. When I did, I liked them, but it's also not necessarily a show right now I see myself watching diligently every single week. I think looking at Season 2, we're getting in like the stage play arc, which is like this whole thing. I forget what the actual name of the arc is, but I think it's also going to be another one where I'm going to wait a couple episodes and then watch them all in one streak, because that's kind of what Season 1 ended up being for me. It wasn't like oh man, I need to see it right away. It turned into, I'm going to let it develop a little bit, then catch up later.
You know what? That's totally valid. What about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page as Nick, where I watched most of Season 1, and I really I appreciate you guys know me. I'm a big fan of like weird anime stuff that you can't necessarily see in any other medium. So, Oshinoko kind of, brought me in terms of kind of the setup and everything. And when I saw the trailer for Season 2, until Nick just said it, I had no idea that this was like a stage play arc or whatever. So I was just like, wait, what is happening in this?
Right.
What are the characters doing? Are they getting even weirder? So I'm looking forward to this. Certainly lights a fire under me to I have to catch up on Season 1, because I know we wrote a lot of stuff about the first season as well as the manga. I still laugh about the fact that we wrote up a story about how someone went to prison because they assaulted a coworker because they had Oshinoko spoiled for them,
I mean,
which is
it's
still
serious.
amazing.
Look,
It's very
Oshinoko is
serious.
serious
So,
business.
yeah.
For the people who follow and take delight in the series, it's serious business. Whether we're talking anime spoilers
Mhm.
or manga spoilers. I mean, at this point, we're a year out from season one. At the very minimum, but there's still a lot of like hesitancy, in terms of, even potentially spoiling something for the series. But yes, this new
Yep.
trailer for Oshinoko, I mean, it confirms it's going to be on High Dive. As we were told, it's going to be premiering in July. It's going to have its world premiere, I believe. Well, I know, I don't believe, I'm confirmed 100% on that the show will be having its global premiere in Los Angeles at Anime Expo. I believe it's July 6th is the date that the premiere is
Yep.
going to be held at Anime Expo. So, for those who do not know, Anime Expo is like the main anime convention here in the United States. It is it's pretty accurate to call it the Comic-Con of anime here in America, in terms of size and the amount of people that go. It regularly is like neck and neck with San Diego. So obviously, as you can expect, as anime has become bigger and bigger, the events have become bigger and bigger, and the panels that are hosted there and the premieres. I've been going for like the last a long time. But I will be in here, so I will make sure I hit up this premiere and give everybody all the juicy details here on the podcast, but also on comicbook.com. So, with that said, I will stop talking about Oshinoko, which is hard for me to do, and I will move. Okay, I have to say this because I never say the name of this anime out loud. How do we pronounce
Oh, okay. It's
it?
Mashle.
Matt?
Yeah, it's Mashle.
Mashal?
Yeah,
Mashal.
because his name is Mash Burn Dead, and it's magic and muscles. So it's like or it's muscles and magic. So it's Mashal, like muscle.
Yeah.
It's a mashup of mash and
That's
muscle.
what I've
And
always said, but I've had
yeah,
some people, like, crucify me because they've said it's Mashley, and I'm like, this is becoming
no,
another Hunter x Hunter situation that's making me very uncomfortable.
it's
Okay,
definitely
so
not Mashley. And if anyone tells you Mashley, they are incorrect, and I will put my foot down on
see,
that. And I,
that's
yeah,
what I've been
yeah.
told, and then, me as a professional in the anime industry, I say, I actually think it's Mashal," and they're like, I think you're full of it. So I'm glad if tells me that's how it's pronounced, then that's how it's pronounced. Well, obviously, we're going to be talking about Mashle, Magic, and Muscles because it has been announced that we are getting an anime sequel. Now, I have to confess, this is one show that I am not super current with. So, what is the deal with it getting a sequel?
Okay, so that's the thing. This is my little platform here just for a second. This is
Okay.
one of the things I hate about like our industry and working in it. It's that when something is announced, it's not like confirmed whether it's a season 3 or it's like a movie or an OVA. They're like, "Oh, it's another sequel anime." And it's like, "No, just say what it is." That's dumb. So that's just a little platform I have for this. And that's the same case here because season 2 ends right in the middle of the Divine Visionary arc, which is sort of like
Mhm.
introducing a whole new set of characters and getting ready for all new fights. And MASH just kind of like at the end of the season's like, well, time to get ready for what's next. And that's the whole clenching his fists that you see in the trailer for the sequel. So when it gets a sequel, I really hope it's like a third season because there's so much more from the original manga to explore. But if it ends up being a movie, that's also fine too because there's only about half of the Divine Visionary arc, and you can sort of finish it up in a movie because Mashle also isn't one of those series that's like very long. It kind of like the manga itself was only like 100 or so chapters, so you can definitely like kind of speed through it a little bit because it's all just gags and goofs and fun, and like every now and again you get like this super slick action. So I like it. I know Evan's seen it too.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised at the fact that this is a sequel announcement versus like just saying that it's season 3, which kind of has
Yeah.
me wondering. Like, I know that A1 for I think A1 Productions or A1 Pictures is in charge of this, and I know that maybe
Mhm.
they're handing off the baton because they saw such success with Solo Leveling. Who knows? But I'll be interested. Yeah, I have seen. I am pretty up to date on Mashle. And it's just goofy fun, like Nick
Yeah.
said. I think that like it's effectively like, hey, what if One Punch Man but Hogwarts? And that's like
Yeah.
it really sticks to that throughout most of it, um, and for better or for worse. And I think that yeah, I'm interested to see where it goes. But yeah, the fact that it's like a sequel announcement kind of raised an eyebrow for me because it has me wondering like, well, why didn't they just call it season 3? What's the,
Yeah.
you know?
That's the thing. That's just
That's
why
the
I'm
lovely
always
thing
like,
with the anime industry is they like
yeah,
it's a sequel, it's a follow up. We're not going to tell you what it is. We're not going to tell you if it's related to the original, the original anime run, or if it's going to be. I mean, it. You have to kind of use context clues to figure it out.
right.
So, I agree with Nick. It definitely sounds like we're going to be getting whether it is a movie or more than likely a new season of sorts to complete this arc. I've watched the first season. Bleh. I've watched the first season of Mashle, which it's super good. It's a super fun. It's a quick
Mhm.
watch as well. It's
Yeah.
something really lighthearted. You don't have to. You can turn your brain off when you're watching it, which is nice. Um, so I haven't started season
Yeah.
two to see, you know. But I mean, part of me is now like, well, should I even start season 2? Should I wait to figure out when is the arc for season 2 going to be able to, finish up? But at the very least, we know we're getting something. Mashle is far from done. So
Mhm.
with that, let's kind of shift gears to something that is, I would suggest is the complete opposite of Mashle, and that's Rick and Morty.
Right.
Rick and Morty, the anime. I believe we have a release update. Is that correct, Nick?
Yes. So Adult Swim, they recently sent out like an email newsletter. If you're subscribed to it, like I am, of course. As soon as I saw the opportunity, I was like, "Up, had to." They share little updates on stuff that's on air, plus stuff they have in the pipeline. And with Rick and Morty the anime, it is listed as coming out this summer. And interestingly enough, with the newest edition of Toonami last week with My Adventures with Superman season 2, which we'll talk about here in a second, they showed this same clip that we've been getting, the first look clip. We've been seeing this one for like the past month or so. But interestingly enough, in the promo, Tom is like, "Oh, coming to Toonami and Max," which also is very interesting because if you tie it back into the summer release window that Adult Swim noted, then you can kind of like schedule out when the show will premiere. And if it is coming to Toonami, and it's likely coming after My Adventures with Superman season 2 ends, which will be like somewhere in like late July. So there's a good chance that by August we will get Rick and Morty the anime, which is very interesting too,
Mm.
because other small updates are they are reportedly also working on an English dub for this, which
Mhm.
before they said it was only going to be English subtitled. So an English dubbed version of this anime will be interesting to see because it'll likely be the Rick and Morty actors dubbing an anime, which is kind of like an extra layer of things that I just want to see how it all works out. And Toonami is pretty good with that stuff because they, like Ninja Kamui, they've shown that they can show both dubs and subs. They'll just show Ninja Kamui subbed at like the later hours. It'll be like at 2 o'clock in the morning rather than at midnight, but they'll still show it. So it's very interesting. I can't wait. These are good updates. It's just now we're getting to the point where I'm like, I need that release date. And if it does hit this summer, we should be getting a release date very soon.
Oh, yes. I mean, we're kind of butting up against the point where they gotta say something. They gotta
Mhm.
give us something official.
Yeah.
Maybe that something official comes out at Anime Expo. We don't know, but it could.
Mm.
It could. I'm just saying. It might. I can't, I'm trying to imagine trying to watch the English dub of the Rick and Morty anime. I just feel like I'd get such weird like deja vu almost like I'm watching
Yeah.
the cartoon, like the animated series here in America. I am so it's weird. It's kind of hurting my brain. I personally
Yeah.
think that I will be approaching Rick and Morty the anime the first time I watch it. I want it to be in the Japanese, the Japanese language dub
Mm.
because I have watched the Rick and Morty, you know, full original series. I've watched a good bit of it, with English subtitles and the Japanese audio, and it is wild. The Japanese voice actors, as we well know, Japanese voice actors are on another level. That's like such a massive profession in the entertainment industry in Japan that the the talent there is insane. So the talent there of the, cast for the Rick and Morty Japanese dub is nuts. So I'm excited to see what that looks like for the anime as it comes out this year. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll get it in August. That would be really nice. Be a nice little
Hmm.
summer treat.
Mhm.
And then speaking of all the Adult Swim and Toonami stuff we're talking about, and we have talked about this lovely show before, but it's finally here. My Adventures with Superman season 2 has premiered. It's so good. There's like I was a little worried, to be completely honest with you, because it was so good in season 1. Like it was so good. And I was just so nervous that like things were gonna get lost in translation or they were gonna make some tonal shifts, things like that. But nah, man, My Adventures with Superman season 2, it's here. You can stream it on Max if you haven't been able to catch it live through Adult Swim, and it's so good. What are y'all thinking?
I'm gonna take off my anime nerd hat for a second, and I'm gonna
All
put on
right.
my comic book nerd hat for a
Yeah.
All
second
right.
to
Honestly, I
say
think you should just put both hats on, one on top of the
I'll
other.
just
Yeah.
I'll just wear both at the same time. I think
love
that number one, I totally agree with Megan. I loved the first 2 episodes. I think that one of the things that they're really doing that's so cool about this, aside from staying true to Clark and Lois and Jimmy's characters, is that they are also changing Superman's origin story a little in a way that's kind of very interesting, because like the way that they break it down is that Krypton was destroyed thanks to a war with, spoilers, Apocalypse, aka the homeworld of Darkseid. And that's very interesting. That's never been done in the comics before. That's was never the reason why Krypton had exploded originally. So it's really interesting to see that. I'm also going to write something today because I don't think a lot of people had caught it originally. But Lois's friend at Star Labs is a scientist named
Yes,
Hank,
named Hank.
who
Yes,
happens,
yes.
yeah, named Hank, who happens to be married, who is also more than likely, it's not confirmed, they never said his last name, but it's more than likely Hank Henshaw, aka the cyborg Superman, who is a big villain of Superman. That he kind of the interesting thing is that he kind of looks like Superman in terms of that guy, that figure in the premiere episode. I thought that was a really neat touch. But again, yeah, as kind of Megan said, this series still slaps. It's still great. It's offering something for hardcore Superman fans as well as newcomers to this universe and everything. There's so many things I could mention. I loved Jimmy's wealth progressively getting lower. That was an amazing metric that they used throughout.
Yeah, it's definitely a joke that we'll see it hit 0 in like the finale, right? Like this is definitely teeing that up. He's gonna use his last dollars in the finale, and
he's gonna rub his last 2 nickels together and make it
work. And on top of what Evan said, speaking to the creative team, they noted how they had like a great deal of freedom actually when it came to redesigning characters and kind of things. Like there were eventually like as co-executive producer Jake Wyatt noted, is that there were some things that they got pushback on, but generally it was just kind of like they let the team do their thing when it came to redesigning how everyone looks, redesigning like character stories and like villain designs. Like in season 2 we get introduced to Damage, new versions of Damage and Atomic Skull, and like Evan said, a future version of Cyborg Superman, which is likely going to be, you know, Hank going through some kind of accident with the Kryptonian tech and kind of fusing with it, as we've seen. Like that's kind of the big plot point teased here, is we're going to see a lot of this Kryptonian tech fusing with human bodies as a result of like Task Force X. And that's sort of all new too, with Amanda Waller's version of Task Force X in this show. And not only that, you've got like an evil Kryptonian who could be Zod out there somewhere in like a Superman like armor. And it's just like, there's a lot of cool stuff in here for and this is just me speaking on the anime side of things. Like Evan, I don't have the comic book hat. I don't have like the deep Superman well of knowledge. All I know is like the Superman cartoon and Justice League Unlimited and stuff like that. So that's basically what I know. But everything here just feels so fresh. Like I love Lois and Clark's dynamic. It kind of continues even better in this one because now they're a full-on couple and kind of like in the throes of that in the early days. And I can't wait to see what's in the rest of the season. I'm down. An hour premiere was the right way to start this off because it really was. Those first 2 episodes really are like 2 halves of the same story.
Yes, that was absolutely the right decision. As I finished the premiere, I mean, all I could think of was, and I know I've said this before with season 1, but it gives such an immaculate, I don't even know how to explain it. It's just the vibe it gives off of Sailor Moon. Watching this, it gives me the same feeling when I watch My Adventures with Superman of when I would watch Sailor Moon, like seeing the backstory and like the chosen heroism. I'm very familiar with Clark Kent and the Superman lore, with the DC comics, and I'm very appreciative of the, new angles and kind of the freshness of the story we're getting here from My Adventures with Superman. But just like the pacing, the plotting, the way that things are like being laid out so far in season 2, even just with the premiere that we've got, it's really impressive, truly impressive. So yeah, we were right. The show slaps. It still slaps, and everybody needs to be watching it. That's my final word on that. Now, to kind of switch out from Superman, we're going to some Slayers. We're going from Superman to Slayers because Demon Slayer season 4, as we know, has been out. We're on the 3rd episode, which just came out, and we've had this discussion before on this show here at Anime Initiative, and I'm curious to get Nick's opinion on this, of course. But episode 3 came out this week. It's really good. I mean, it's a really good episode, and it's like 99% original. The majority of it is original in terms of pacing, teases for what's coming up with some of the other Hashira. We are given a really good, authentic original episode that was based on like 1.5 pages of a manga volume. It's a whole episode that is spun off from like 1.5 pages from the original Demon Slayer manga, where Tanjiro and Tengen Uzui, the Sound Hashira, or the retired Sound I'm so sad he's retired. The retired Hashira, kind of reunite during the Hashira training arc. Now we got like a full episode and it slaps. So I want to know, Nick, how are we feeling about this expansion?
Oh, yeah. So before I get into that, I just have to get this out of the way because I can't stop thinking about it. Is every time you see Tanjiro's baby face on like the giant muscular form, I can't help but think of like the Little Buff Boys sketch from I Think You Should Leave. It's just kind of makes you think of that because it's like, Tanjiro's really like tiny
that Asta physique. It's got that Black Clover physique idea to it.
But it's so much funnier in this one because they always like kind of like cutify Tanjiro's face even more, that he's always smiling and stuff. So he's just like a little round baby head with like giant muscles, and it's just always funny as a visual. But beyond that, this ties back into what Evan and I got to talk about with the premiere, is that the major debate going on already. Like, if you ask, I kind of want to know what fans think of this, because we're gonna get a lot of original material. This is kind of like what we're gonna see through the rest of these episodes. It's not a lot. There are no big fights in this little stretch of the manga because everything that comes later. So I'm guessing we're gonna fill that in with like little training fights like we got with Tengen and Tanjiro here. And I'm here for it. I do like the original stuff because, like I said, the big issue with the original is that we don't get a lot of them, the Hashira, before a lot of stuff starts happening to them. And like we talked about, like Evan and I got to talk about during the premiere, it's kind of like the story doesn't get to flesh them out until their fate is already sealed. And it's like, oh, well, too little, too late. So here's the time where they can rectify that, at least in the anime. What are you thinking, Evan?
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. I know that was something that we were all a little scared of in terms of like, well, how are they gonna take... I did not know originally until after I'd seen the episode that like this was only based on a page and a half worth of material. That's nuts. Also, I want to add, how tall is Tengen? Because this dude, it looks like he's
so
8 feet tall in terms of versus... He's so tall. His wives are like the same height as Tanjiro, and they're all like 3 feet tall or something. But no, I really appreciated. I thought that if they didn't have that scene in the manga, where Tanjiro is teaming up with the other young demon slayers, and they're all kind of fighting against Tengen, I thought that was a great scene in terms of like showing not only Tanjiro having to like do this on his own, but having to take into account innocent people around him. I thought that was like an interesting way to like give him a challenge. So I really dug that episode. I thought it did a good job of kind of showing what's going on in the Sound Hashira's brain now that he's kind of semi-retired and everything. As well as it just didn't feel like filler. I wouldn't have known it wasn't filler if I didn't necessarily, wasn't told that and everything. So this season has been, I feel, so far, has been better than season 3. I think that it's like the way that they're doing character development and everything has been really spot on so far. There's been interesting stuff here.
Oh yeah, I absolutely agree with that. The original edition of everything that it did with Tengen and kind of fleshing out like the internal conflict he feels about being retired and like not being as like active within the corps, versus, what Tanjiro's doing, him getting those like little moments, not only as kind of, better fleshing out his kind of relation to Tengen as both a friend and almost like a mentee of some degree, but also in inspiring the other demon slayers. Like that's something that is really true to Tanjiro's character. He's he's gone through it, but like at his core, he still stays pretty optimistic. Even in the face of like absolute just awfulness. I would not want to be isekai into the world of Demon Slayer. Like, let's just say that much.
He's just a little buff boy. He's just a little buff.
He's just a little man. He's just a tiny little boy with a bunch of scars and an 8-pack, but a very round face. I loved it. I think they did as a public devotee to Tengen. His new design in the anime, man, he looks cool. He looks so cool.
Yeah,
all he would do is lose an eye and a hand. Come on, he looks great. I was really into it. So this episode also it teased up the fact that we should be getting a really cool skirmish between 2 other Hashira. We should be getting to see the Snake Hashira and the Wind Hashira have a kind of, I wouldn't call it an exhibition match, but they just want to fight. They're ready to let off some steam. So I'm excited to see that because we just, as we've said in the pacing of the manga, we just really didn't get a lot of time to see the like internal relationships and the inner workings of the Hashira, especially as they're heading into their final battle with Muzan. So I'm game. I'm very excited for this. So
Absolutely.
Demon Slayer season 4, sticking it through. We are pleasantly surprised, especially given how season 3 went in terms of pacing, which, wasn't great. But we'll digress. Keeping our fingers crossed for what's next. So we have to pay for the show now. I know, it's a surprise. We have to take a quick break, but when we come back, we are going to be talking about why you should be excited for Sakamoto Days and what the next generation of anime hits will look like. So stay tuned. Hello and welcome back to Anime Initiative, comicbook.com's go-to place for all things anime and manga. We are back with the second half of our show, and we have a very exciting announcement to discuss. Because yesterday, in order, to fill the holiday spirit, at least here in America, we were given the official announcement that Sakamoto Days is getting an anime. The rumors are true. It's happening. Our favorite retired prodigal hitman is about to show up in the world of anime. So let's go over a little bit of the announcement before we dig deep into our reactions. Because first, what we know is that Sakamoto Days is getting an anime. It's going to be overseen by TMS Entertainment, and that the show is expected to premiere in early 2025, like around January or so. So it's going to be a winter showing. At this point, we do not have a confirmed place where it's going to be streaming. But if you have kept up to date with comicbook.com's coverage or this podcast, you will know that rumors have been abound for a couple weeks now that a Sakamoto Days anime adaptation was supposed to be heading towards Netflix for a premiere. So that is what everyone is expecting, is that this show will end up on Netflix. So with all that information shared, and we have discussed the show's announcement, I need to know what y'all's reactions, Nick and Evan, are before I share my own. Please discuss.
1000% up for it, because Sakamoto Days, it's been one of those manga that like I quietly enjoy every week. Like it's just kind of like a weekly dose of like like an elevator pitch on this series is that it's basically, it does whatever it thinks is coolest in the moment and just kind of does it. It's a series where like it is full of assassins trying to kill one another, but it's also got wacky cartoonishness. Like physics don't really matter. People are like constantly jumping through buildings, and like in one fight scene, a blind swordsman assassin cuts a bus in half while they're fighting through it and fighting like in the midst of like a rushing highway. One of my favorite scenes that stands out still in my head in terms of favorite manga things I've ever seen is a woman named Akao. She like steals a motorcycle, and she's got a cigarette in her mouth, but she kind of drifts the motorcycle so low that the mirror hits the road and the sparks light the cigarette as she's driving. So it's kind of like, it's those cool things. It's like, I just could not wait to see it in motion. Like, this is also stuff that this is also why, like, in anime production, like, I'm glad the trailer looks good, because this series absolutely needs to land in terms of like how everything flows and moves. Because if there's one thing about the manga's action, is that everything flows, and it's made to be fluid. Like, everyone's clothes are baggy so that you get the maximum kind of like lift when someone like lifts an arm, lifts a leg, and kicks around. Like, one of the assassins, she's a goth woman who uses a handsaw, but like an electric saw that's like unplugged. So it's like maximum heft and size, but she's kind of just swinging it around and cutting things in half. And then there's a sniper who has a bird sidekick that tells him like where to line up his shots. Sakamoto has like bulletproof glasses, and it's just kind of like
True. I need some of those.
It's so many things like that. And the trailer's funny too, because there's a character in it named Lou who was like super important up till about like chapter 40 or 50, and then she just disappears because they never use her again. And I'm just so excited to see this one finally animated, because like I said, this is just one of those that I quietly enjoyed. This was just like, oh man, this is my weekly dose of like John Wick manga action. But now that we're going to get to see it, I can't wait for it to explode. Like, this is that big juggernaut series.
It truly reminds me of like the perfect trio combination reading the manga of John Wick meets a version of One Punch Man plus Gintama, which like
Yeah.
I could not. That's like the biggest compliment I could give. Evan, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm super excited. I haven't read the manga, all of it. I read a couple of the opening chapters, and I do have to check this one out. But like the general sense that I get, and this will kind of roll into like when we're talking about like what's next for Shonen Jump, what's next for with so many series that are ending, is Sakamoto Days going to be able to kind of help lead the charge of this new generation. And one of the vibes that I get specifically from this is kind of like another in the line of like Spy Family. Like this is a series that kind of feels in that same kind of vein in terms of, you know, everybody's harboring these secrets, but they're also kind of living these lives that are effectively like so much more behind the scenes than we had originally seen. And I think that like, just how can you not love this series when the protagonist looks like that? What an interesting like concept for this character in general.
There's so few characters that I look at in Shonen and I'm like, that guy has an aura about him, and that Sakamoto is that.
Yeah, like we were talking, like one of the big things that everyone loves about Kaiju number 8 is that Kafka, the main protagonist, is like 32, and Sakamoto Days is kind of like that. Taro Sakamoto is he's a middle-aged dad who's like he has sort of let himself go, but as you see immediately, and as you can already see in the trailer, he like still has all his skills. And not to worry, like the whole thing is like he's got a form that when he like I forget what the comp is. There's a version of this somewhere, but when he uses enough of his like or he spends enough energy, he does eventually take on his skinny form again, and that's when things get serious, where he's like, I'm like real serious about it now. It's kind of like, it's not exactly like Fat Gum in My Hero Academia, where
he's Fat Gum.
It's not
like
exactly
from
like
Hunter
that.
Hunter.
Yes, that's the thing. Like, it's not exactly like that, but when he does go back into the skinny Sakamoto, that's when it's like, oh, okay, these are serious. But it's, once again, it's just all cool stuff. Like, and this is the thing with this anime, is that it absolutely needs to have that aura, like Megan said. Like, there's one of the most famous Sakamoto Days shots in the manga is like when he's fighting in a museum, kills a bunch of dudes, and just kind of stands over them, and behind him is these giant set of wings in a painting called the God of Killing, and it's just like the coolest panel that's like I've ever seen. And it's like the anime needs to do that. Like the anime just that is my, I guess, like speaking negatively again, that's just my concern, is like there's so much pressure on this because it has to be cool, and it's so hard to do cool intentionally, you know.
Right. I mean, we
Mhm.
always look at things. I mean, like the aura, like in terms of discussing like the aura that comes with this show, and specifically Sakamoto, is I continually liken it to One Punch Man because it's such a nonsensical story and premise. But when Saitama is, getting quote unquote serious, like he has that aura to him. And we looked
Mhm.
at, the season 1 with Madhouse, and they nailed it. They really truly understood how to bring that kind of presence and gravity to life for Saitama. But as we have seen in, subsequent seasons under different, creative direction and production teams, One Punch
Yeah.
Man has definitely missed out on that. So we know what this looks like when it's done right, and we know what it looks like when it's done wrong. For Sakamoto Days, though, as one of the more, hyped, I would say, like new gen, like kind of next gen, manga series that's currently in Shonen Jump that people have wanted an anime for, the pressure is definitely high. I mean, I think we can all agree on that. There's a lot riding in terms of the fandom's reaction to Sakamoto Days, which I guess is a pretty good segue into talking about what Sakamoto Days is really kind of in terms, as a, anime adaptation for this burgeoning generation of anime. We kind of have, our eras of anime, our generations as we go through them. And we are on the cusp of saying goodbye to a bunch of them. We just said goodbye to Attack on Titan. My Hero Academia, it's going to be sooner rather than later. Demon Slayer is going to be sooner rather than later. Haikyuu, it's wrapping up with its films. There's a lot of these, really big shonen series that have been out for, at least, nearing a decade, that are incredibly popular, that we're hitting that end point. And the actual Shonen Jump manga has been dealing with this as well. The magazine itself has also been kind of struggling in figuring out what its, new kind of hit lineup is. There are some series that are going to be continuing. That's kind of the stalwarts for a little bit longer. I mean, we have, Jujutsu Kaisen's hard to tell, but we still got a good bit of Chainsaw Man to go through, I feel like. But when it comes to
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
fresh
Yeah.
hits, Sakamoto Days is one of them. It was released through Shonen Jump Plus in 2020, and it has kind of risen in popularity, pretty virally since then. So now we are, looking to get that anime release. It's going to be joined kind of by other next gen series, as I'm going to kind of call them. We know Dan to Dan is coming out, and we know it looks good.
Mhm.
We know that is supposed to be
Yes.
coming out towards the end of this year, and it looks sick. And obviously at the beginning of this year, we got the premiere of Kaiju number 8, which I feel like is another one of those series under Shonen Jump that fits into that generational category. And it has done incredibly well. So we're already having some of these Shonen Jump series come forward and find success to kind of populate what this new gen of Shonen Jump anime successes is going to be. I just want to know, like, from you guys, like, how do you see Sakamoto Days fitting in to this new kind of stepping point for the industry?
Well, it depends on streaming, right? Like, so
Mhm.
let's talk about that. Let's talk about the report that initially that was listing it for a Netflix release. And as you know, Evan will unfortunately remind everyone that it could be a death knell to Sakamoto Days if it's handled in the same way as like Stone Ocean was,
Oh,
or like
my
I hate
heart.
to keep, yeah, I hate to keep bringing that up, but it's like, yeah, like Netflix has an unfortunate release schedule when it comes to that. But at the same
and also
time,
sorry to interject really quick, but we don't
no.
officially know that it's on Netflix. Wink.
Yeah.
I know.
It's
not like
been
Netflix released an official document at a presentation listing it there, and then it mysteriously disappeared like 3 days later.
And
yeah,
that's exactly the thing. But
3
you
days.
know, there are shows that can succeed. Like Delicious in Dungeon has been taking off because it has been a weekly release that's both a simul dub and a simul sub like release in the same day at the same time. I'm still like perplexed as to how they've been pulling it off for such like the entire season. But that's kind of like, if Sakamoto Days does indeed get a Netflix release, it kind of has to hit that same level of like quality and production of like, yeah, we're releasing the dub and the sub in the same time. And I think that is the maximum way to like reach out to people, because if not, unfortunately it does have a better place, it has a better chance on Netflix than it does say on Hulu, because unfortunately on Hulu you have shows like Mission Yozakura Family, which I love, which is sort of like on the border of the Sakamoto Days generation, where it's like, yeah, I'm watching, I'm enjoying it, but also no one's talking about it because it's on Hulu, and the English dub isn't out till like mid-June, and it's not going to start till like halfway through. And then if it's a Crunchyroll release, unfortunately, I do have to say it's unfortunate that it would likely also get swallowed up by many of the other Crunchyroll releases, and it's going to be one of the many competing on there. But if it ends up like a Delicious in Dungeon, where it gets to have like the Netflix platform basically just all to itself as the big release of whatever season in 2025 it hits, I do think it really has a chance of big success.
Yeah, I think absolutely Sakamoto Days is going to be an anime that it will live and die on a weekly release, just based on the episodic nature of it, the kind of wackiness of it, the action appeal of it. Nothing will kill that series quicker than seeing people on social media posting the insane, fight sequences, action sequences, but it's not available to watch on Netflix the day of, and we get it like 3 months later. That it'll die. It's as soon as, if we got a report right now that just said Sakamoto Days will be released in bulk 3 months after, like at the end of the core, it's dead. It's dead. We're not. It's just go ahead, say a prayer for it. It could be great, and it probably will be great based on what we're seeing now. I will say, Delicious in Dungeon has been such a surprise victory for Netflix, not because everyone's surprised that the method is working. I mean, here on this podcast, Nick, Evan, and myself for years now have been saying Netflix needs to do that weekly drop. It has to do it. That is something the anime fandom,
oh my God,
that's like one thing the anime fandom won't sacrifice. And you see that this even big series like the 7 Deadly Sins or JoJo's Bizarre Adventure can't overcome that. It is an integral part to the fandom and the community aspect. Delicious in Dungeon was able to do the impossible, essentially, or what we thought was impossible. And a lot of that comes down to its production schedule being so well maintained by Studio Trigger, the company that is, overseeing Delicious in Dungeon. Studio Trigger is able to get that content produced well in advance and in enough time that Netflix has been able to do that weekly release. So a lot of the Sakamoto Days issues with Netflix, I feel like, one, it's going to have to be, well, can it get that approval to do the weekly release? And two, can it do it for itself? Will the production conditions and scheduling allow it to do that? If they're smart, they will. That's all I'll say. If they're smart, they're going to make it happen. Because Sakamoto Days, I think, really, really has that it factor to it that, few other series, like other than One Punch Man and Gintama, can see. And also my favorite thing is that the voice actor for Sakamoto is the voice actor for Gintama. So
I didn't know that.
Gintoki. Yeah, it was. It's fun. It's Gintoki. Like that's a fun little nod.
the voice of Gintoki is going to be the voice of Sakamoto, which is hilarious. I love seeing that progression. So I'm hopeful we will. I'm hopeful Netflix has learned how successful Delicious in Dungeon has been because of its weekly release. That show, I really fully expected it to die once I knew it was on Netflix. But once I saw it was getting a weekly release, it's consistently in the top 10 for anime, at least here in the United States. So, hopefully that has taught them a good lesson. Because for Sakamoto Days, I mean, we've already said Day to Dan's going to be joining it in that kind of, generational category. Kaiju number 8 has already kind of stepped forward out into, release. We're almost done with season 1 at this point. But now I kind of want to talk about like what's next. What is going to make up kind of the rest of the bulk of this new generational platform for Shonen Jump anime, as we're seeing a lot of titans like My Hero Academia approach their closing. I know for me personally, and I don't have a good feeling it's gonna happen. But I've wanted a Ruri Dragon anime for a long time. Obviously, the manga was on hiatus for quite a while there due to the creator's health. The series is now back on a more spread out release schedule. But man, I think a Ruri Dragon anime would be so good to join this generational launch.
It'll be great when we get to see it in 2028. So look forward to that, Megan. That's going to be fun. Can't wait.
Man, you're optimistic. I was going to say 2030.
Let me paint you guys a picture, okay?
All
because when I saw this topic originally, this is one of the things that I wanted to paint you guys a picture. Imagine the opening scene
landscape of anime.
Imagine the opening scene from Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, where we see the formation of the many rings that were given to man and elves, and all of these different factions in the land of Middle-earth. And one ring was forged above all to wield all of the rings together. And for me, I think that there's one anime adaptation that everyone has been like kind of clamoring for, and that is a certain manga that has been topping the charts that's called Kagurabachi. And I think that
Oh my gosh, somebody needs to make a meme edit of this right now.
I think, you know what, Evan? Evan, I think you're right. Kagurabachi will save us. Kagurabachi.
It will. That's the one that's
all.
been.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a matter of if; it's a matter of when at this point for Kagurabachi.
Yeah.
That thing is like the next Demon Slayer /
It's doing
One
too
Piece
well in
/
terms of sales at this point. We just don't have enough content.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be.
Yeah.
Like at the very least another year and a half like before it even gets an anime announcement, because Blue Box is coming out next year, and Blue Box didn't even hit like 100 chapters until like 2 or so years in its run. So it's it just hit 150 this week, and it's the same with Mashle. Mashle is only like 150 so chapters before it like got its thing. So Kagurabachi definitely right now it's around like chapter 40 or so. So so it's definitely going to be of course, I think because of what Evan's saying, and I do think, like Megan said, it's such a high demand for when that anime thing, they're going to fast track it as soon as possible. But that as soon as possible is definitely we're not seeing an anime announced until 2026 at the earliest. I think we'll get we're working on it, and then they'll release it in early 2027 or something like that. I think by that point, maybe it'll have enough chapters to at least do the first couple, the versus Sojo arc and stuff like that. So they'll be confident that there will be enough material to do it in a seasonal way. But it's definitely going to be a wait for that. But I can't wait. It's the same for Akane Banashi, because Akane Banashi, that's also one that it's also in 100 or so chapters. It's reached that point where it could feasibly get an anime announcement, but that's also a manga that I'm very curious as to how they would produce it, because it's kind of like Oshi no Ko in that it's all fantastical in very real world settings. Like it's in the drama is in the Rakugo and the performances and like the visuals you get out of those performances. So it's not really like I don't know what kind of anime production you would need to like kind of hit it correctly because the Kane Banashe is also like it's just kind of like that series where everything looks so cool and Akane herself is like everyone's like so coolly designed and so well designed that like I don't know how an anime is going to pull that off, but that's also one of the reasons why it might not it's like Kagurabachi, we won't get an anime announcement until like 2026 or something like that.
Right. I mean, that's
2025
how I'm
maybe.
also feeling about like Witch Watch or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, like Witch Watch has like 300 chapters right now or something like that. But also that's another one. It's like literally Sket Dance. It's the same creator, but like it's got chapters that like it's got episodic arcs. They can literally do the anime forever. They can do the manga forever. But then the manga will also have like I kind of dipped out on it for a long time because it had chapters that were going nowhere. And I'm like, what is this? There's literally a whole chapter that's like a story within a story within a story. And and on a weekly basis, that's not great. So that's sort of the things that people have to look at when looking at the anime adaptations for those. But I think Evan's right. I think it literally is. I know calling the shot maybe too early, but I think it is Kagurabachi.
Calling
like,
it now.
yeah. Like,
I mean,
it
is,
really is. Yeah.
3 to 4 years.
And this is also keeping in tandem. Like we got some more Jujutsu Kaisen to go through in terms of the anime. We have a lot of Chainsaw Man to go through in terms of the anime. So when we're talking about anime, specifically anime generations, you know, we've got Chainsaw Man sticking around for a hot minute. You know, there's some tried and true things that, you know, hopefully we will expect to come back, you know, things like Boruto, you know, now that its time skip is, you know, moving forward at least monthly, you know, Dragon Ball is going to be coming back to kind of take its, you know, every generation has a Dragon Ball at this point. So, you know, we'll be getting Dragon Ball Daima this fall. So I mean, Shonen Jump specifically does have a pretty impressive lineup. And then when we're looking even broader in terms of the anime industry as a whole for popularity, you know, other publishers, I mean, Delicious in Dungeon, that's not a Shonen Jump title. It's doing extremely well. You look at things like Oshi no Ko, it's doing extremely well. And I mean, even things like Solo Leveling, which Evan mentioned earlier in this episode. I mean, that's a South Korean, you know, manhwa. So it has also become a very lucrative and viable source of, you know, adaptation material. So in terms of what our next generation of Shonen Jump hits look like as we're approaching the finale of so many titles, you know, I feel like Sakamoto Days, Dan and Kagurabachi are kind of like the trinity for me that I'm eager to see. Two of those announcements have already been given. Where's my Kagurabachi?
Yeah, like
it will be a hot minute though. People do not get your hopes up for a Kagurabachi anime announcement. It's gonna be
a while.
at least I would say at least 2 years.
Yeah, and that's if the manga gets to continue. Like this is
it's
true. Got a lot
it
of demand,
is so competitive.
It
is so competitive. I mean, and looking at the way that series like My Hero Academia and, you know, Black Clover, how these massive anime hits have kind of changed the landscape for what anime looks like. I mean, anime has obviously been popular for decades outside of Japan, but you know, we would be ignorant to overlook the kind of renaissance that the industry has had globally thanks to streaming and accessibility in the last 5 to 10 years. In those 5 to 10 years, the shows that were really super popular were things like My Hero Academia and, you know, that have been changing this kind of, you know, landscape of what we're looking at, you know, Mob Psycho 100. Rest in peace. I'm still not over it. You know, even to a degree, Attack on Titan, you know, we have definitely set a global landscape for shows to do well, and we are seeing manga now do well globally. You know, series like Kagurabachi are now incredibly popular in Japan, but it started off being popular outside of Japan. So now I'm curious to see how this next generation of Shonen Jump anime titles, follow that trend or divert from it.
Right.
That's what I'll
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
Same.
that's a lot. It's a lot of pressure. I'm glad that we don't have to deal with it. We just cover it. We write all about it, and we beg for our favorite adaptations. So that's all we have for our episode today. If you have any suggestions, pitches, questions about what the next gen of Shonen Jump anime hits will look like, let us know. You can find all three of us on social media. We would love to talk to you guys. You can find me online at Megan Peters CB. Nick, where can they find you?
You can follow me at Valdizology on all the socials and over at Pop Culture Social Call with Anna Rumor.
And Evan, where can they find you?
You can find me at EV Comedy on all the socials.
Awesome. And of course, please leave us a review here wherever you get your podcasts, whether you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple or wherever you get your shows. Leave us a 5-star review. Give us some, give us some questions about anime, about manga, about webtoons, whatever it is. We want to hear from you guys. We love, getting to talk to you guys each week about anime. And if you need even more geek news to listen to, comicbook.com has a wonderful library of shows. Of course, we have our flagship Comic Book Nation, where we talk all things geek. We also have the pull list, which we talk about comic books, quick saves, where we talk about video games. We then have Phase Zero with Brandon Davis, where we talk about all things Marvel. And of course, we have my other favorite podcast, A Wild Podcast has appeared, where I host with Christian Hoffer and we talk about all things Pokemon. So if you want to head over, give those listens, that would be great. Otherwise, we will return next week here at Anime Initiative with tons of new info. So catch you then.